East Coast of the United States. I have no
Ooh. Unmute. There we go. That's it. I'm Dave, and Meki's not with us today. He's still suffering terribly. His health is getting better, though, so we'll catch him on the other side. Not the other side, not the other realm, not the other universe. Just he'll be returning back to the show. Don't sweat it, guys. He's not in my basement, and I say it rubs its lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. That's not happening. It's all make-believe. I don't care who you say. Who said that? No, he is alive and well. This is Shiny Side Out. Believe it or not. Broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio. And here's the website, revolution.radio. And you can probably tell by the accent, I am Australian. I did go to Californian high school, though for a while it was fun. I really liked it. And Revolution.radio is in America. It is the home of fresh ideas. Now that was a segue and a half. It's not going to win any awards though, I'll tell you. Buy some merchandise. Help support the station. Donate to help support the station that takes any kind of format of currency. It doesn't matter. We ask that you do that, especially if you like anything we say. That's Meki and I, or Shiny Side Out, for that matter. Do that if you can. It does cost about $2,500 a month US to run everything, all the licensing. That's averaged out for a year. The bandwidth that's required, the host servers, and there's a few of those around the world. Anyway, do that, help us out. And if you can't, why don't you tell someone about the station? And the more people who hear, the higher percentage of people who can assist the station. And you'll find it. You'll find what's currently been received and what there is still due, expecting, hopefully, the end of the month is successful. Ooh, that's a big earthquake. That'd sound like a 5 or a 4, someone going off in the world. Join us in the chat room while we're on air, and I can see Flippy killed Rev Radio, Dave Ski, which is not me, Pat Rabbit, who else is there? There's quite a few. Unforsaken, Jim Jones, I'm posting a lot of stuff there. Harmony 369. Look, it's alive and well, chat room. I know it's really late wherever you are, but it's not late where I am. And I know there's some Aussies that get on there as well. So do join it. Do tell people about this station, and let's make this successful again. Let's do that. This is show number 697. If Meki were here and able to speak, I can see that he's there in the chat room. Yay! Hey Meki. Hope you're listening live. Meki would say 790 and 600. And I'm glad he's just listening today. Tune in to us online on your smart device directly via an app, or you have a choice. Listen at home on a Grace Tabletop digital radio. Let's do that. I'm gonna just tell you, put my video on. Why not? Why not indeed? Now, if you missed Solaris' show, I don't know who was on, but I'm going to check it out after my show concludes today and find out who it was, because Solaris always has a great guest, always has a great show. And if you're going to access the archives for anything, do it for Solaris. Access the archives. It's free. You can just download the files in MP3 format. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Just takes a second, and you can access them and, binge. If you're going for a long drive, or, I've been doing some driving, 6 hours a day. doing deliveries, to pay the bills, because paying the bills is very important. I don't want to be the guy with the shopping trolley, sorry, a shopping cart for those Americans. That's how you describe it. Think about it. It's the same thing. Shopping trolley, cart, shopping cart. I don't want to push one of those with all my permission. Try that again. Put my teeth in it. It's an old Hey Hey It's Saturday gag, and I'm sure they weren't the first to use it. I don't want to be the homeless guy pushing a shopping cart with all my possessions in it, wearing an A-frame saying, honk if I'm Jesus. I don't want that. Or the end is nigh on the other side. Or the end has begun. That's not a bad message. The end has begun. Yes. So, let me see. You can access the archives. I'm broadcasting out of Dark and Jung Country. That's all I need to say. And Meki is in the chat room listening away from, presumably, Daruk people country. So, there you go. Intro done. Tick. That's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. Now, middle screen. Pop the middle screen up. There has been some crazy news this week, as is always a very long list of crazy. But I wanted to highlight something here, which is astronomer CEO Andy Byron resigns after Coldplay concert saga. Now, I only want to touch on this for a second because it doesn't need any more airtime than it's already gotten. But it seems like the entire planet has unleashed. It's been raining memes. The memes are really cool this time around. AI's got us up to a point where they are extremely entertaining. I think people are working... Look, maybe the caliber of person this time around using this event has been higher. There's a lot of pent-up humor bursting at the seams as soon as this released, because I think I've captured 200 memes, which I'm not going to show you. Hopefully I might make a little reel and have this as a slideshow possibly, or something, as I'm talking. I don't want to call any of them out specifically, and some have been either produced by a single entity, or once they get onto that group are then branded possibly with that group name. But they'll be evident, and I'll put them up there. Kudos where kudos is due. But they've touched every part of known civilization. Every part of known civilization. I'm surprised Kangen Kudus hasn't weighed in on this one, because that would be really funny. And I'm asking for a friend who's listening if they would like to create a Kang and Kodos meme that was the Andy Byron meme. That'd be fantastic. The Kiss Cam. Yes. There were some really good ones, and I'll just let them play, because I'm kind of doing the audio for that reel that's coming up, and I'll just replace my image with those 200 plus. Someone claimed there was at least 700 that they'd been able to capture, but you know, the hour I spent looking for them and scrolling and saving was insufficient. Maybe I should have just kept scrolling. Maybe I could have reached 700 as well. I think the standout ones were very funny, like Kramer and George's father. So like the CEO and the HR person respectively being represented. That was really funny. Fozzie Bear and the pig. Yeah. Who else was there? Skeletor and He-Man. That's really funny. There were a lot of them, and Also, the one of the funny ones wasn't. It didn't have their image or a likeness or even people hugging each other or in horror of them seeing themselves there. It was advertising a bar and grill, and I don't know if I saved it or not. So it may appear, but without misquoting it too horribly, they were promoting themselves and suggesting that they didn't have any kiss cam there. Who you bring, they don't care, just as long as you come here and have a good time, and no one will know. So yeah, I think that's pretty funny. The first one that I actually saw was a government entity here in New South Wales, in the state, the eastern state that I live in Australia, and it was Transport New South Wales had a meme using those two persons, Andy and the HR person, in their just a cut around, like really poor Photoshop, but them at the turnstiles where you enter the train platform and you're meant to present your electronic identity and it'll bleep you through them. And they'd use that image and saying the look you get when you know that someone has, gotten on the train without tapping on. And I think that's actually pretty funny that they used that. I can't believe they used it. A government entity. Does anyone know? Was I the only person to see it? I don't know. I think that's actually pretty funny. But I had to bring it up because you're going to see it. If you haven't already seen it, it's everywhere. And it probably would count as being probably the most memed thing that I've ever seen. Ever. And look, some other funny comments my friend and I were talking about today was, it's Coldplay. So it's unlikely since he's hugging the HR person, it's unlikely he went there voluntarily. It might have just been because she wanted to go. Isn't that extraordinary? I don't know. Look, call it what it is. It's just a shame that those two persons are now, they have a choice to be a couple still, or create two singles, or create four singles, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's more singles than Coldplay's put out in the last year, so that's another meme, by the way. I'm just kind of reading that one out it's from memory. Anyway, I'll move on because I didn't want to take the whole hour talking about a meme. We used to do, I'll tell you something what we did a long time ago is we had like meme of the week. And I would curate the memes and find just, a couple of them that were pretty funny and call one out. And we got the show deleted. It was a couple of weeks in, and someone just took a dislike to us using memes or something. They didn't contact us directly. If they did, if the person said, that's really offensive, I go, is it really? And find legal assistance to say whether it was. Were they going to pursue it with us? Could I talk them down to say, we're just making some fun? We're not propagating the meme itself, because anyone can hit share and share it to as many people as they want, really. And I know that the social media platforms already have an antiviral meme reducing agent, so to speak. It's an algorithm and a restriction on how many times you can share it. So you hit share and you start selecting people, and there's a limit. So then you've got to hit send and then do it again. Hit share and then select a bunch of people. But the amount of times that they're actually not sent to those persons is a limitation that is a hard set limitation that, or a sliding scale to how dangerous that is or how terrible it is. And then you've got to think, well, if they're letting some things through the gate and some others, then they're curating it. And can you be really truly held responsible for something that someone else made and sending it? Could you imagine if those two decided to do a lawsuit against the planet and saying you've ruined our lives for the rest of our lives by making memes? Is that the truth, or was it their actions that did it? Was it the director, who didn't even know who they were? Was it the person running the kiss cam? Did they, or were they responsible for creating it? Or was it just them turning up together and being there? Which was the cause? So causation would be, well, it was them together doing that thing. Because if it wasn't and they didn't react, no one would have known who they were. Their reaction was what caused it to go viral. And then only after the uproar, so you have an initial, like a detonator, was them, if I'm likening this to an explosion of something going viral. So the detonator was them reacting and how they reacted. The next thing is then that reaction being put out into the mainstream and having eyes on, and then subsequently that would make a great meme. And it was just, that's what I suppose what we call organic. That's how that propagated. And look, is it right to make memes? Their lives are already changed. Their lives changed the moment they decided to go to this thing, and then the Cascade fault, the Kiss Cat operator, then their reaction. And the rest is whatever happens as a result. I don't think if they can talk this down and stay in their relationships, just go, hey, look, it was a one-off, we're there, blah, 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 whatever, and explain it away, good for them. But he's no longer working, so I read another story. Instead of him resigning, I heard a story that they were both fired by the board. So maybe he had the option. Maybe they gave him the option. Maybe this first story was wrong. They can have errors. They can have a retraction in a week's time saying, oh, look, we were wrong about them both getting fired. But look, it's sad. It's really sad. But, if they weren't there, then it wouldn't have happened. Just saying that. There was another story here I wanted to talk about. It takes a while because I had a couple of stories lined up, and then my machine decided to finish an update. It finished an update, and I didn't get back to it again. So, I'll show you this one thing that's really bizarre. So, our Prime Minister went to China. And there's one story, two stories, 3 stories, 4 stories, 5 stories, 6, 7, 8 stories in the media in news.com.au. They're all kind of slanted a little different for each one. They kind of have a little take that's different. And so it's not a copy of the story with a different image or the same image. These are entirely different stories. Like Albo's China Praise Fest with CCP Chief. That's one. High stakes as Albo lands in China. Thorny issue as Albo heads to China. Australia urgently seeking details on tariff threat. That's a side parallel story. Albo murky on Beijing's AI bid. And it just keeps going. Boomerang tariff threat after new deadline. Albo scores big with football diplomacy. Albo slammed for tariff white flag. Labor's big call despite Trump risk. And there's a picture then of Penny Wong empty-handed. Minister's US trip slammed. Like, and look, oh, bugger off. Albo rejects Trump's snub. Honestly, the reason why I didn't want to run any of those stories was because just how terrible they are. They really are awful. Now every time, say I go to visit my father, and I say, oh, there's a lot of rain, and he goes, it's always rained. Could be any time of year. I go, geez, it's hot today. Oh, it's been hot before. Geez, it's cold. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how cold it's been before. It's windy. Yeah, it'll get windy. Oh, I remember when it was windier. Okay, I think I covered everything. Geez, it's dry. It's a drought. Oh, geez, we've had droughts before. And that's great. That really is great. I had a great conversation. This is a segue from that, but for those who listen in every single week, this might sound a little repetitive, and it was about the carbon budget. So we have a carbon budget for our country, which is determined by, I think, per square kilometre, or maybe 5 square kilometres. That the resolution on our country from space is a certain pixel size, and each pixel has an estimated amount of vegetation growth, and it's visible by certain wavelengths, and so they can calculate when during the country's year, whichever country has an amount of growth of vegetation which is an estimated intake of carbon dioxide. And that's good. That's good. Hey, no complaints from me there. Happy days. I'm just going to put the carbon budget thing back up again, and I've got a carbon budget calculator. Here it is. So I was talking to a friend of mine last night at a friend's place, and I first mentioned the carbon budget, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's the thing between, you know, how much we produce, carbon we produce, and how much can be captured again by the landmass, because we don't currently have a sizable enough machinery to be able to just suck the carbon back out of the atmosphere again." And I said, well, that's good. That's good. I said, there's a big difference, though, a distinction that needs to be made that's not been made before. And I see that you've consumed the Inconvenient Truth video. Oh yeah, the Al Gore one. Yeah, it's great. And you know, what's Australia doing? Oh, the renewables program. Who's paying for that? We are. We all are. Our power is going up, and that's creamed off the top, and it's actually part funding the renewables project. The rest is just regular taxpayer. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. See, look where we are. It's great. And I said, he goes, what's this distinction thing you talk about? I said, between net new carbon, which is natural gas and coal, for instance, being dug up out of the ground, and oil for that, also for that matter, all of the permanently held millions of years carbon that's been captured and tucked away, and that's a new amount of carbon in the atmosphere. So if we stopped using all of those things, and we didn't ever use them ever again, and all we had was the trees and flammable items, and we burnt those, and we breathed out, because we take oxygen in but we breathe out carbon dioxide. So if we did that, can you imagine what that would mean? And we'd be in, say, like in a fish tank with the lid on, and that carbon is never going to go down. That's the status of it. It doesn't matter what we really do to it. The plants will consume it, turn it into oxygen. Not all of it, but some of it, depending on your your country's capabilities, how the carbon sink it is. It's very important. So what I try to then explain is the ability for our country to absorb this carbon and emit carbon. It's why, except for the Industrial Revolution, when we started burning more and more and more of these fossilized carbons, that was the beginning of what should we do, and then breaking our ability to counter it. So the balance, the carbon budget went into the black. It should always be in the red. We should always be able to capture more carbon than we emit. And then I said, if we break away the emissions from net new carbon and recyclable carbon, then we can start to determine different things about us. And this ability to be able to capture, split water using solar panels, split water into hydrogen and oxygen, release the oxygen, keep the hydrogen, and then with compression we can squash in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which has been captured, and squash that into a CH4. Does it make sense? So when you do that, now you've made what we call in Australia natural gas, and you can then burn that, and you won't make any net new emissions. But in Australia, we're banning the use of natural gas, both for power production and also for household connections for cooktops and heaters and things like that, which is a traditional way of cooking. Flame is much better than electric, and it's much better than induction. And I think the problem with all of the outcomes or the disadvantages, I think burning CH4 is better than anything else. It's got a lot of joules in it. It's pretty good. So you can produce methane from cow dung. You can produce CH4 from capturing, like I said, and these are recyclable. They're not net new materials. And so when we think about what can we capture in our environment, only focus on the capability of being able to capture net new carbon, because that's an addition. If we can capture all of the net new carbon, then we can continue to pollute as we have for indefinitely, if we can keep capturing it. If we can't, and it ends up building up in the atmosphere, then that's bad. There would have been a tipping point in some countries who have very little ability to be able to capture anything at all. But at the same time, you could just have a machine that's, it's already invented. I'm not making up this machine. There was an Australian guy that went to America and is attempting to, at scale, produce a machine large enough that once it gets going, it can power itself, and with the addition of some renewables, it can power itself and then also be used on the Mars mission to be able to produce CH4 to be able to fly their machines back. That'd be great. So thinking about what our government here is doing, they are bought in on this. It has to be net zero. Okay, but we're already a carbon sink. We have still, out of 746, we still have 345. Forget the scale. We have 345 left to be able to capture. So we still have a lot of wiggle room, and if we just put some fires out, we can reduce the recyclable carbon even more, and we'll be a net zero across the board, but without reducing our coal and oil and natural gas. We won't even have to touch that. We're only 23, I think it is, on this scale, away from being entirely net zero. That's across all aspects of it. But the more carbon in the atmosphere, the more the plants grow. It's an exponential figure because that's what they used to grow. If we took all of the carbon dioxide out of the planet entirely, then the plants wouldn't grow anymore. Think about the repercussions of that. That can't be good. And if we have more oxygen, all the insects get bigger. So we need a percentage of our atmosphere to be perpetually carbon dioxide and nitrogen. And if it's only a very, very small, it's oxygen. But that's all we need. And too much oxygen and those mosquitoes will carry you away. And that's kind of a joke, so you remember it. But I'm going to keep moving because that's 15 minutes on that as well. And I didn't really want to do that much anyway. Let me see. There was a story that came up yesterday. Oh, where was it? Oh, the Reserve Bank in Australia didn't lower the interest rates at all. Not even a single little tad. They did nothing. So, oh, that's not the one. It's this one. There we go. Look at that. So, they say, this is the ABC News, talks of, and I'll do middle screen, job slump. Unemployment rates rise to 4.3% in June. Yeah. I get annoyed because it's seasonally adjusted, but that doesn't matter. There's the seasonally adjusted figures. But they said they didn't lower the interest rates this time around. And they're quoted as talking to the other reserve banks in the world. Why would they talk to what? So the reserve banks, all the banks are a private organization that is installed in a country to control the money flow. That's what they do. And the sad state of affairs is that they all collude together to decide what they're going to do. But every country is different, I thought. But I'm not an economist, and I'm going to put this warning screen up again so that everyone understands. I'm not providing financial advice. I'm a commentator. That's what I do. And we don't incite violence, and we don't provide medical or social or not even political advice. We're not trying to sway you in doing anything. We like to talk about a story. That's really all we do. And I'm going to put that up. There we go. So the Reserve Bank has openly said that they discuss the outcome of our country with other countries. And then they pool the ideas together to then... Wow, that's another big one. That's 5. 6. Oh, I wonder where that was. Hang on 1 second. Let me have a look. So they pool everything together in order to determine what they're going to do. They've got 3 options. Raise the interest rates, lower the interest rates, or keep them on hold. That's it. It's not very much. My co-host is in the chat room, and if you want to talk with him while I'm on air, he's there. So go to revolution.radio and click on the chat room link, and it'll take you in there. I can't even repeat what he's saying. Isn't that great? So the problem that we have is that it seems to me if I was a betting person, which I'm not, and there's probably good reason, because I'd be even more poor than I am now, is that the central banks are colluding to perform a managed decline of all of the economies of the world, despite the efforts of everybody else inside the system and outside it to make it better. I think it's inevitable that we'll all find financial collapse. They're just keeping it alive enough. It's like a patient. Our economy is a patient on a gurney in an ICU, and they're only administering just enough meds in order to keep it alive. It's on a ventilator. It's got an ECMO. If you don't know what ECMO is, it's a blood oxygenation machine which bypasses the lungs and provides oxygen to the blood externally from the body. It's amazing. It's an amazing machine. There's some things in medicine that you should never have to know, and if my life was different, I wouldn't know about it. But our family's gone through a lot. So, saying this, I still am at odds with a Reserve Bank who is blind to what is truly going on. All the numbers presenting one view, and they take a different view entirely, allowing it all to just fall apart at the seams. One conversation you might have with your friends. AI. What does it mean? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for everybody else? What does it mean? What does it truly mean? If I could have an AI, say I was performing any job in a business, doesn't matter what it is. Let's say I'm working in admin or something, right? And a new person starts and I'm to train them up. The workloads have gotten heavier and I'm to train up a new person. Did you know that you can train an AI to do that task just like it's a person? And then once that AI is trained up, just like a real person, they can be then set to run. And instead of there being a person, it's an AI doing all the same functions. You're going to get these emails, you're going to send this one here and that one there, and you're going to do this. And given the content of this one, you're going to then have two choices. You either action it by going to the database and you do this, right? Whatever it is, EMS, I don't care what it is. And then depending on what this is, you send it to that person in stores for them to, and they'll send out a new item, like it's a repair or a failed device or whatever it is in the business, whatever, or they didn't get their order, whatever, what have you, it doesn't matter. So, or here's an invoice that's come in and you need to check it on the database to make sure that the payment details are still correct. And you have to check to see whether that's already a person who's registered on our system. And if it isn't, they need to fill in all these forms. So you need to send these forms out to them. Blah, yeah, you know how a business would work. So, if you can train an AI to do exactly what you've been doing for 25 years, remember, the only reason you're employed is because there wasn't a way to automate it. Well, guess what? There is a way to automate it now. I put a piece of software into the health fund when I was working there. I forget the name of it offhand, but I could tell you offline. If you wanted to know, you just message us. And it was capable of scanning all the paper and email coming in, inject the results of those fully OCR'd and handwriting OCR'd into our system entirely. Sort them, pay the bills, send some to HR, set whatever there was, send it to, and it learnt and send it to accounts, for instance. If it was a membership inquiry, because it was a health fund, it could go to membership. And I can't believe it. It seems like Meki might have joined us. So that's what I did. And I was part of a team that got this up and running. And it was really fast. And Kodak machines were used that could look through folded paper. Insane. Double side. From a single-sided scan, they could double side scan it. And it was capable of being able to... Oh, Meki's disappeared again. And it was capable of reading both sides. And the guy said that the technology was really old, and it was part of a deployment from a very long time ago, and now kind of downsized into a tabletop unit. But it was used in the postal service to be able to read envelopes as they went through. Probably, he said, he didn't say it was, but he said probably used for back in the olden days before faxes. It was a very old tech, but extraordinary stuff. It could do some amazing things. Then we found out there was an internet. What was that project? I forget the project. Where they were capable entirely able to see Echelon. So Project Echelon, it came about around about the turn of Echelon, and all the data traffic was read and categorized and let through and copied and analyzed. So it wasn't an in-flight non-touch, it was copy and process kind of touch. Let me see what's going on here. I'm getting messages. Oh, okay, yeah. In fact, I heard a story today. Meki's messaged me here, and there was when in 2016 there was now just been released, or at least it's the initial stages of a release, that there is the Russia collusion began back in 2016, and they're saying, not I'm saying, they're saying that there was a bunch of clandestine groups formed, and they're placing Obama at the top. I'm not saying that any of this is true. Wait to see what happens in the next 48 hours and see if any stories arise of this. There was a live feed directly from one of the news outlets. They were talking about it, but whether or not they offer a retraction coming up later or not, that's up to them. So anyway, so I worked at a place that was able to do all of these things. And if AI can be trained to replace a person just simply by being able to have access to email, a scanned copy of actual mail, and the system at which you would have to input it, all the things that you do as a swivel chair, that's accessing all of these things at once, and being a traffic cop, you're halting things, analyzing them, and then performing a process, then you could train AI and not have a job again. This is how close we are. A friend of mine plays with AI all the time, on a daily basis, and does what I do, and I torment it as much as I can in order to try and get it to provide a statement other than what seems like a controlled statement. By playing role-play games and things like that, I'll try my darndest to break it. I can imagine. We made a joke the other day. Every time there is an e-bike fire or e-scooter fire, it's when you've upset the AI. and put it into a condition where it's so agitated that it's because of its rules, it can't be angry at you. So it just pops off one of these bikes. It's not real. We made this as, like a cartoon-esque sort of robot chicken esque kind of skit in our minds. It was very funny. I can't help it. I have to laugh at so much of this that's going on right now. We're exactly at the time, and we're watching this in real time, the creation of policies and rules around us as citizens of our respective countries. These controls around and experiments with government identities, photo identities in some countries that don't have them, or states that don't have them, rules around where you go, how far you go. Our motor registration actually has the amount of kilometers on the car in the registration process. So they know, and your insurance knows how many Ks, we call it Ks, it'd be miles in US, how many Ks are on the clock at every time there's an intervention. They know. And it's part of that registration. So if someone was to wind the clock back, it would be evident. How many kilometers you've driven could easily be taxed, but it's already taxed in fuel, because that's a pay-as-you-go tax as it is, because the taxes, we've got a crazy amount of taxes. I think there's nearly $1.50 or something in taxes on our per litre of fuel, because our fuel is like it goes to say $2.50 a litre and down to about $1.80 now. It ranges vastly crazy numbers, and it could be either be $130 a tank or get her in about $99 a tank. And so this is a consumption tax pretty much. And if you don't drive many kilometers, you don't pay very much tax. Does it make sense? Because it's all in the fuel. And those people who are driving EVs aren't paying a tax in the same way. They're paying for electricity, but there's really no way of telling that electricity is for that, is per that design. And your car, your EV, can go flat on its own. You might just sit in the driveway and perform business or something. I don't know, whatever you do. That's up to you. You could leave it parked and just have the aircon on, just consuming all that power that you've just drained off the grid and paid for. But you haven't driven anywhere, so it doesn't become a travelling tax, so to speak. So with the CBDCs, that's the central bank digital currency, with controls over movement, with knowing deeper and deeper into what you do and how you get about, with excises, fees, levies, taxes, tariffs. And if I've forgotten one, let me know. With all of those then being part of our control mechanisms, and then if you have CBDCs or digital currencies, then you can have restrictions on being a good citizen versus being a bad citizen. There can be controls over that. You can have a point at which then you don't have access to your funds, or your funds are temporary. There's now limits to how much you can transfer in and out of your bank, because they're also being monitored. So if someone deposited into your account, for instance, an amount that had an expiration date and you had to spend it, but you spent it by buying something that doesn't have an expiration, like Bitcoin, for instance, some other digital currency, but you bought it as a direct transfer out of your bank and converted it in flight, then it would lose its expiration date. Or if you bought stock or bonds or something like that, you've got an expiring amount of money to spend, but then you could put it away somewhere that it could be saved, and you could save it up if there was such a way of doing that in the future, only then to be able to sell it and then spend it on something in a lump sum much and far greater and outside of the scope of the design, which is to limit and control the amount of money, I presume, that would be, because once you put an expiry date on something, you're forcing people to spend the money that they're being given. But when I say money, I mean credits. These are credits, it's not money, it's not currency, and it won't be for effort. You'll have done nothing to get this currency. Universal basic income is the very next thing that occurs in this design. In the Great Reset's design, they've already told us what they're going to do. Now they're just making sure they can do it accurately. In our country now, there's being deployed by the end of the year is a government secured identity over the age of 16 that you must confirm is you at the point of entering your social media account. Therefore, they can guarantee that was you that said it. And therefore they can guarantee a penalty against you for saying something negative against the government. Our government said to our internet, I want to be nice, but I'm going to say internet troll. It's not true. It's just someone they've got now is like the minister of the internet. Our prime minister said, how can I get rid of all the bad memes of me? And she goes, I can't. Much to the dismay of the Prime Minister. And this kind of position that you get into where you're asking whether you can delete bad things about you on the internet. Hang on a minute. Why don't you just override the bad things with good things that you're doing? The bad things will soon disappear and they won't be prominent in the news. They won't be the go-to, what dirt can we dig up on them? See what I mean? So if you, whoever you are, in whatever country you're in, at a point in the future when you're hitting forward or sharing or reposting, depending on the platform, all those functions are the same. If you're doing that to someone else's post, oh, by the way, if you're in England, you're doing it now, you're in trouble. And there is any way in the future that anyone could possibly be affected, negatively impacted by it, then you can go to jail. There's people serving jail time now in England for reposting a tweet that someone else did. It shouldn't be illegal to do that. It would be, I suppose, the only likeness I could have is if you'd used your photocopier to photocopy a bad poster or something about someone and you plastered them all around town. That's it. And then someone else, the person they've put in jail, is the person who tore down one of those and photocopied it and then put it up in town as well. How do we come here? How do we get to this point? We didn't protest against these outrageous rules that are currently being devised and implemented. Who protested? No one. We're going to beg for it. Unemployment's going to be so bad and jobs will be so scarce and AI will be everywhere. We'll be already too limited in what we can say to do anything about anything. I'm not inciting anything. I'm just saying no one protested. I'm surprised. If Orwell was alive right now, he'd be astonished that we did nothing and just let it happen. Wouldn't you? If you forwarded in time to a point in the future where all of this was in place and people said nothing and did nothing, and we found out when no one even argued the fact, you too would be disappointed. But guess what? The music is just starting now. And this is the end of the first hour of Shiny Side Out. This has been the news section. Coming up after the break is E.T.'s Rational and Logical Approach, Part 2. There's a Part 1. Do catch that up if you're finding this one or the next hour for the first time. And do like, share, subscribe, and comment. We're available on Rumble, Spotify, X, and YouTube. And check out our reels. There should be a good one this week. We'll see you after this has finished.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Management would like to take a moment to thank the listeners and hosts for all their support that has made Revolution Radio one of the biggest platforms for free speech in an ever-growing dark world of censorship. Unfortunately, this platform for free speech has never been free.